Greetings and welcome back once again. I think I should have. I always do this. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is the moon. I pray everybody is well. I'm here chilling in the day. It is breezy, but the cars might stop making noise. But if they do, we're going to rock with it a little bit. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed, like, share, do all that nice stuff. I guess because at this point I'm on this relationship tip conversation, I wanted to talk a bit about, hey Adam, what's going on? I wanted to talk about a topic that has gotten me into a lot of heated discussions over the years. It's one that seems to be a trigger for many. When I was not educated on the topic and it was used as a tool, it would trigger me, as it does many. But over the years, over many years, I'm talking about over a lot of years, I've studied this topic. So oftentimes when I speak, especially on these platforms, men get upset and women get upset. But in this topic, I like to speak from a more, to the best of my ability, observable, objective space, right? Hey, shalom, brother. And so, as we talk about the nature before of soul ties and the nature of, certain things, I wanted to see if we could talk a bit about the nature of polygyny. The other day, I was invited to have a discussion. I was all ready, right? I shows up, and I didn't get to have the discussion. So I was like, all right, cool. Because oftentimes, when people emotionally wed themselves to an idea or thought, we're talking about soul ties, and then we're going to talk about polygyny, which is the idea of a relationship structure that for one reason or another, male or female, may wed their self to this thought. Whatever they told themselves about themselves on either side of the aisle, they wed themselves to this thought. So then people begin to dig their heels in for or against, right? And then what I notice, especially in this space, whether it be for religious purpose, whether it be for personal purposes, is that people go about either trying to convince the other party to accept them, or berate the other party and deface the other party or people group because they don't accept them. So to a large degree, the nature of polygyny and even the discussion in society, it has shown itself to be divisive, because of it's something that's challenging what many would say is the norm, right? The status quo. And because it's doing that on one side of the aisle or the other, it's going to make the people feel uncomfortable. And oftentimes when we feel uncomfortable, we try to do things to control our environment to get us back into a space of equilibrium. Like we, the people, the human body, the mind, the psyche does not like discomfort. That's why they call it a comfort zone. Whether it's physical discomfort, if our body gets too hot, it begins to sweat. Why? So that it can bring down the temperature. You know what I mean? We're always in flux all day long, and our body and our minds are looking for ways to bring about comfort. So when someone speaks or for or against polygyny, depending on what aisle you're on, automatically, our defenses go up. And then people begin to attack. So this is what I was seeing in this particular case, where the young woman was attacking the other side of the aisle because they don't agree. Now, so one of the nature that it has is the ability to be very divisive. Secondly, it deals with a level of, and somebody you could disagree respectfully. That's all I ask. Like, if we keep it clean, professional, respectful, I'm good. But if you look at it in its very, and I talked about this many moons ago, but if you look at the very nature of it, it is imbalanced, right? Because it's gonna, if we have, and I spoke about this before, if we have a male principle and a female principle, right? And these, in nature, it takes only one male and one female to reproduce, okay? If we talk about reproduction. And so the imbalance is that you only have a limited resource here, a finite resource, which in polygyny's case is the male principle, and then you have whatever is the number that you're going to add to the female side, which creates a level of imbalance. I mean, that is an observable truth. That is one of the things that oftentimes is hard to get beyond, that very first fact. I think in even having these type of discussion, it's like, okay, let's put one thing on the table and see if we can agree or disagree with that. Is it fact? Not feeling. Is it fact? Okay, boom. Is it fact? Okay, we can move past that and get to the next thing. So the first fact is that for whatever reason, whether you are trying to correct an imbalance or whatever it is you're trying to do, I'm not trying to get to the why, I'm just at what right now. What is it doing? It creates an imbalance. And on the female side, why it becomes troublesome oftentimes, hey peace sis, what's going on, is that because there's this one space that you're occupying and multiple people in this one space that you're occupying, it creates natural tension. Anybody who tells you that's not the case is not being honest. It is going to create a natural tension because you have more than one person who is supposed to fit this particular description occupying the space at the same time. It's like, I don't want to get graphic, so I'm going to try to stay. Y'all know me and my analogies. I'm not going to go here off. Okay, I was going to say something, but I'm going to leave it alone. All right, boom. So the nature of it is that even in the Bible, the sister wife, it is a word for a narrow strait, right? Why? Because it's a tight passage to get through. It's like a doorway. One person can go through the doorway at a time. I'm not talking about why you want to do it or why you felt compelled. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about just the very nature of this relationship style. Okay? If we can agree, let me know. If we can't, if I'm making sense, if it's just observable truth, let us know. So what was the first one I said now? I forgot A because I just went past A. But B, it creates a level of imbalance. So now that you have this level of imbalance, this oddity to the relationship, then people need to find out not only how they're going to relate to their partner, okay, you also have to find out how you're going to relate to other people who are occupying, this is for the female, occupying the same space that you are occupying. The same job description. It's like, okay, I have a job description, okay, not the regular clerk that everybody's at the desk. It's not a regular clerk position. It's not a regular janitorial position. Let's say it's a vice president position and you only have one vice president position. Now you have to speak to how are all of these people going to occupy this wife space. And it goes beyond just meeting the sexual needs or procreation. It goes to who the confidant of the person. It goes to, all of the things that you invest in a relationship. Who is going to occupy this space and who is going to obtain power? Because make no mistake about it, it's a power dynamic, right? Who is going to have the power or be able to connect with the male principle in a way where they're going to be able to get their needs met? Let's stop playing games out here in these streets. If we understand the nature of it, and then we can understand as you look around the world, because a lot of our people just like, oh yeah, it's a nice shiny new toy that I found. And I said, you know what, look around the world. People have been doing this for a long time. Let's stop pretending that it's the Western mentality that's actually causing the issue. Let's look at this particular relationship style and see where the issue may be coming in. Not just, oh, because you're in the West and the West says that this is not something to do. When you go to the continent, which I've, look into, when you go to Asia, when you go to India, when you go to all of these places, this relationship style exists. And it also has issues, even though it's accepted, because of the nature of the thing. That's why it's very important for us to look at the nature of the thing. I'm not talking about if you do it properly and if you do it correctly and if you, all the stuff that we say to make it all good and all right, right? We say a whole lot of stuff. Trust me, I have heard it. Father, help me, I've heard it. Anyway, so the fact of the matter is, it is a complex relationship strategy because of the nature. You know how when you're doing fractions, which I liken it to, right? You have a whole fraction. Simple fraction, right? That's what they call it, right? You got 2 over 2. That equals 1. It's a whole fraction. And then you have a mixed fraction. Then you have 1 over 2/3. That's a mixed fraction. This is math now, because we talk about math. And then you have something called an improper fraction. And in order to fix an improper fraction, you have to go through all of these steps to make an improper fraction into a mixed number, or whatever it is that they're asking you to do. Okay? So when you talk about one male to this many females in one position, then it's going to be something that's a bit complicated. It's going to take a little bit more for the person to figure out. So the base of it is, the nature of it is complex. Let's be honest. Let's stop, like they say, can we normalize not making it to be the solution for everything that ails the people, knowing that this is a complex situation, that if the parts or the individual parts are already challenged, it's not going to fix this. It's not going to be the solution to what you're talking about. For instance, like I said it before, the sister made polygyny the solution to Derek Jackson's situation. And I'm like, how, Sway? How? How is polygyny the solution to Derek Jackson's situation when you don't know the fullness of Derek Jackson's situation? We ain't there. We ain't in their relationship. How can we say this is the cure-all, and a lot of people are using it as a cure-all to the situation, not realizing, just like pharmaceutical drugs, because it's complex and because it's something that you have to piece together in a certain way, it's going to have all of these side effects. I know sometimes we don't like to talk about things like this rationally, because as long as we keep it on a emotional tangent or emotional space, then we can argue from that space. But when we bring it all down and let all the smoke clear, we can say, you know what? Absolutely, that's facts. Now, there's people who justify polygyny because they use the Bible or they use the Quran to do so. And they say, well, Jacob did it, and Abraham did it, and David did it. And you are looking for justification. Remember, I told you, sometimes, a lot of times, we don't like emotionally, mentally, and physically to feel uncomfortable. So if we have certain desires or inclinations towards something, then we're going to look for something in our environment or someone in our environment to justify our behavior. It's the same way if the children, you told them, you see one child sees the other child go and get juice. They didn't ask you for juice. Next thing you know, somebody come out drinking juice. And what are they going to tell you when you catch them? I saw such and such doing it. And you're like, wait a minute, what does that have to do with why you drinking juice? You know what I mean? It's the woman you gave me. So we're always going to look to kind of pass the buck to the other person to justify why it is that what we're doing, what we're doing. What I find interesting is that we follow that train of thought to get in. But when you receive what that person received, when you get the back end of what that person got, now, you know, it's like, oh, I didn't look that far. You know what I'm saying? I didn't look that far at what happened to their family, or I didn't look that far down the lane to see how it ended up. It's not very wise to just jump into these type of relationship structures, any relationship period, but this complex relationship structure, and use other people that are nigh and far off from you as an example of why you should do it. Because you can't go to them and ask them what's not written. You can't go to them and get clarification. You can't go to them and get the end of the matter if it wasn't left on record. How are you going to know how it ended up? Because if we're doing things and we get the reason to do it in the beginning, but we don't get the wisdom or understanding of what happened in the end. So what happened? You know, you usually end up saying, so how did it turn out? Somebody's telling you this fanciful tale and just stop. And you're like, where's the rest of the story? They're like, I ran out of ink and sheepskin. You know what I mean? There is no more story. You're like, wait, hold up. How did this end up? How did this end up? Right? And a lot of times how it ends up, it depends upon the parties who are involved. And because no matter where you go in the world, in the case of humans, because humans, no matter how you overlay, because culture is an overlay. You have the soul, you have the person, you have the spirit, and then you have culture, and you have traditions, and you have all of these things as an overlay, like you put a filter on your phone over the soul. So when you go down to the core, Even though society may say that this is something that we accept, if at the core level it causes a problem or it causes dissonance for that individual on a soul level, it's going to do so no matter where you are. The only difference is that in one place it may be accepted, or the person may be, their brain may be massaged or into believing that this is how things are and there's nothing you can do to change it. Or you may be in a space where you can vocalize, hey, I'm not down with this, I don't like this. So I think using necessarily the wisest thing to do, because again, if we lean to or we lean against, it's just giving us justification without looking at the very nature of the thing. So it creates an imbalance. When the woman or the feminine principle is looking to the male, what is she looking to him for in relationships, right? You say, oh, because the woman is emotional. Like, dude, you acting like she went over there and tinkered and made her own emotions. Everybody has emotions. It's how they display it. If the woman is looking for security from that man, if she's looking, it really all depends. When they talk about some women are pro-polygyny and some women are against polygyny, it's interesting to look at the nature of the women that you're talking about. Because not everybody has a desire or is looking for the same things. And because they're not looking for the same things, they're going to have a different perspective on life. There may be one person who is looking to connect with the other person, with the male. She's looking to have that person be her security. She's looking to fully invest in that person. And so because she's looking to fully invest, then she's going to be looking for a full return on her investment. For instance, right now you have a lot of stimmy checks going out, and everybody's saying you should do this with your money, you should do that with your money. Certain people, different type of investors invest, like I got them quick before they ran up on me. Different type of investors invest in different things, depending on what your pain tolerance is, or depending on how much you are willing to lose, right? So there's some people who classify investment as playing the lottery. But that same person will not put a certain amount of money into real estate because that's too much high stakes for them. There's certain people who may think going to the gambling casino is investment, but that's gambling. So it really and then there's some people who invest for a living and say, this is what I'm going to put in, and this is what I'm expecting in return. Relationships are an investment. Time is an investment. That's our resource. Energy is an investment. Our emotions are investment. So you have different types of, in this particular case, let's look at the women who are saying, because people are like, oh, you Western mind and you this, that. No, we're looking at the nature of something and the nature of people and the fact that everybody is not the same. So some people say, hey, some women may say, I don't have all this energy for this man, right? I've heard it. I don't want to see him 24/7. I don't want to put in no 100% or no investment. Therefore, I am willing to divvy up my space or my position so that someone else can invest their time, and whatever little bit I get back, I'll be satisfied with that. That mentality is just not in polygyny. That is what many people will say there's a side chick mentality. There is a mentality of, I don't want the responsibility and that's entangled to be entangled with this individual on this level. Let me know if you guys can hear me or if the cars are too loud, because it's a nice breeze and I don't want to close the door, right? You have some people, some women who say that they want to do what they want to do. They want to go bike riding. They want to have their own life apart from, but they want somebody to say, hey, I am with this person. So basically they want a part-time love. And so they're only willing to give part-time. And so to them, sharing is not a problem because they are willing to just get what they can get. Now, collecting those type of mentalities together makes kind of for the man the perfect storm to say, because now he has this variety that many people may seek, many men may seek, and he doesn't have to fully invest in anyone particularly, right? Because he understands that they're not going to fully return in the same way. On the other hand, you may have the feminine principle, or you may have the woman who says, nah, I'm not down with that. I'm not down with that because when I show up, I give 100%. Therefore, I'm expecting 100% return. So just based on that, the nature of those two mentalities alone, a lot of the issues come in is because the man is not necessarily looking at the perspectives of these women. Some women may say that they are not the man for themselves, but they may say because of the market or because the pickings is slim. It's like right now looking for houses. We're looking for houses. The market is slim. So you may say, oh yeah, I'll do a walkthrough, even though on a normal day you wouldn't even looked at that house. You know what I'm saying? On a normal day, that wouldn't have been something that you're looking for. But because there's not a lot of houses on the market, there's not a lot of men on the market, you're going to give consideration or live in a neighborhood or get in a relationship with someone who, on a good sunny day, you would have been like, nah, I'm okay, depending on the person. Welcome to those who just joined us. And so this is just what I've gathered from years of just reading, studying, research, observing real life. The issue comes in, many issues come in, but the issue comes in with when the masculine principle or the male or the husband takes it upon himself to force his will and his desire down the throats or upon the women who are not necessarily interested in this type of relationship structure, right? And so this is where some people may say that cheating comes in because the person begins to be dishonest. This is the nature. This is what it forces people to do, because somebody wants to hold on to this and this at the same time. They want to hold on to what they found. Correct, Uzziah. It's like forcing a square into a peg hole. Correct. It's like trying to make something to work that's not working because you so desire it to fit. And so it begins to break down the relationships that the person already has. Now, there was, in my research a couple of years ago, there was a show that came out, right, that was called Seeking Sister Wife. And there was a couple on there. They're back, right? The Snowdens. I don't know if you guys have seen this show, but it's back. I was like, oh, they're back. This is very interesting. What I like to look at when I'm looking at these shows, whether they be in England, whether they be in Africa, whether they be in Asia, trust me, I've been all over. Whether they be Mormons, in and out of religion, all that, is I like to look at the women faces, right? Because I can read like this emotional shift. You can see like how people are looking and doing the body language breakdown of Derek Jackson's wife, and when she winced and when her eye went this way and when, you know what I mean? If you look at people's body language, you can see the conversation that they're saying, but they're not saying, right? And so in this, a lot of times, not all the times, but a lot of times it's male driven. I didn't say all, so y'all don't come for me. If you do, just be respectful. A lot of times it's masculine driven, and the women are their brains are being massages, they're being cajoled, they're being manipulated in some cases, they're being, worked over until they come into compliance or until they come into agreement. This is the nature of it. It's going to either be through culture, it's going to be through religion, it's going to be through whatever it is that has to be used, whatever tool to override the mentality that, hey, I'm here to invest this amount and I'm looking for this amount. There has to be a tool, a manipulation, or either shame, either putting down, looking down upon, the person is selfish, the person is greedy, all of these things, right? Because you have to convince the person. I trust me, I've been there, okay? You have to convince the person that their expectation of you is unrealistic. And this is why you should accept less. Even though if you're going to go biblical, if you're going to go Quran, the expectation is that you cannot commit adultery. So therefore, this is where the imbalance, like I told you, there's a natural imbalance. Therefore, the thought is that the feminine, the woman, should give 100% and expect 25%, 50%, depending how many people are in that space. That's how many times you have to divide what you are going to expect. Let me know if I'm lying, y'all. Let me know. I know some people clicked in and clicked out. I ain't trying to hear it. There she go again. But hey, I'm in the mood today. But I don't got long, so I'm going to leave in a minute. But so however many people are there, that's how much you can expect to divide your return by, right? And if the man, in the case of Jacob, cannot or does not or really did not want to be in this space, and in that case it was the feminine principle pushing him to be in this space because of procreation purposes, then you will have one loved and one hated, like you see in Deuteronomy. If a man who has two wives, one loved and one hated. Why? Because the male is indicating in this space that this wasn't really my thing, and emotionally he's not able to split himself into so many ways. So one is adored, one is pulled in, and the other one is kind of like, I see you tomorrow night. You know what I mean? Kind of that way there. And that, as we're looking at, the Torah is also giving us a glimpse into the nature of the relationship because of the imbalance. It's not something that, Amuna, you're making it up. Dude, put it on the scale. If we're talking about balance and imbalance, just put it on the scale. You ain't got to believe me. Get one of them old school scales. And put one little tab over here says wife. Put one little tab over here say husband. And start piling them on. And you'll have one over here, and however many you want to desire or put in over here, and then see whether or not it tips the scales. Just weights and balances. You know, I tell you something important about scales, and I'm going to wrap it up. The very first time, back in, when I first started Zahava, the shea butter and the soap business, back in 2012, this is a long time ago, I was using eye level. Myself and my husband, we were putting the shea butter, doing the thing, and put it in the bottle. But I was eye leveling it because there's a marker on the bottle to where you should put it up to. So we were eye leveling it. This was my first, and the lesson never left me. Anyway, I was all excited. I put it in the box, and then we were selling it at a what do they call it? Community market. What do you call it? Co-op. We were selling at a co-op, right? So we got it in the box. We did all that, and the people were like, "Oh, I like it so much." So one day we're doing a demo, and the lady comes back. She was like, "I bought your thing," and we're like, "Oh, okay. How did you like it? This, that, and the third." And she was like, "I put it on the scale." And we was like, "Oh, okay." And because this wasn't intentional. It wasn't no intention to misguide or, you know what I mean? She's like, "I put it on the scale, and it says it's supposed to have 8 ounces, but it had like 7.6. And at first I was like, what? Like, yo, this lady is tripping. What is wrong? Who does that? This is my first thought. I'm not going to lie. My first inclination. But remember, when you talk about business, you're talking about just weights and balances. You say this is the amount. You say this is the amount you're getting for this. The expectation is this is the amount I'm getting for this. So at first I was like, and then after that, you say, my apologies. We gave her another one, if I'm not mistaken. And right after that, we went to the store and got a scale. And never again did I allow anything to go through the door, even to this day at the Yummy, without going. I mean, if it's 1 gram, 1 milligram, I'm making sure this joint is even before it goes through the door. Why? Because the expectation is, this is what the marking is on the bottle. This is what I'm expecting to get. When we're talking about relationships, energetic exchange, emotional exchange, intellectual exchange, physical exchange, I mean, it's love, it's relationships, but when people get dissatisfied, when people turn away, is because oftentimes they're giving way more than they're getting back. And so it creates this deficit. It creates a lack because this person has to be satisfied with whatever it is that they have agreed to. And initially, many women say they agree to this. There's nothing wrong with it. They agree to it. And then when it actually begins to start happening, so they do it to acquire the deal. It's like saying that you can pay the car payment that you really can't pay, or saying that you can afford the house that you really can't afford. Right? You put your hat where your hand can't reach. And then when the real life starts to kick in, you're like, this ain't working. At which time you have people involved, you have families involved, you have children involved, you have all of these things involved. And I end on this. On that show, Seeking Sister Wife, they found a girl, this family, the Snowdens. It's many people on there, but them in particular found a girl who they were so excited about and said, and they put the girl, actually the wife, puts the girl through all of these tests and all of these measures, and you got to do this, and you got to do yoni steam, and you can't eat meat, and she puts her through all of this rigorous training, right? Until finally, she gets the prize. Right? She gets to be, and they have this marriage, unofficial marriage ceremony, where she and him and her are standing up there. And in I think it's less than a couple of months, the woman decides, this is not what I want. And she packs up and she leaves. And now they're back again in this episode looking. But when you see that people will say that they're in an agreement, people will say that I don't have any problem with it. And the reality is, it's not always true. And it's not always right. And that goes with relationships in general. So don't say, oh, that's a relationship in general. Yes. And that's why I'm saying that's the nature of relationships in general. And then the complexity of putting another layer on top of that relationship. How does this person interface with this person? They're already in the same position. Now, how are they going to interface with the individual, and how are they going to interface with one another in the same position? And if it is not that person's desire to be in that space, no amount of cajoling or forcing or manipulating is going to make that situation a healthy one. So that's my thoughts, y'all. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the nature of polygyny. It's a complex fraction. No, it's an improper fraction. That people use, and I'll say this one more thing before they say, it's because of, okay, people have used it historically for imbalance, war, a lack of suitable males. They've used it because men have exalted themselves in spaces of which they wanted to dominate areas and show their dominance. So they collect a lot of women, which is ultimately where it's like collecting a lot of cars or collecting a lot of homes. You collect a lot of women, and that shows that, hey, I have arrived. You know what I mean? Let's be honest, brothers. Come on now. Can we just be honest? I saw one dude on the new show. He was like, yeah, this means I'm the man. It's like pulling up on the block with a BM. This is when, hey, what's up, Sarai? This is when, not all, but when the woman becomes objectified. Right? Let's not pretend like we don't objectify people. So when the woman becomes objectified, now the amount that you have shows your bravado, right? Let's be honest. I've seen it. Y'all don't want to be honest. I'm going to be honest because I've seen it. So the brother's sitting there and he's like, yeah, I've arrived. It's a status symbol. Correct, sis. So the nature of it historically has not always been a one for righteousness. Let's and once we step away from, trying to, give it the spit shine it up, and look at it for what it is, and be honest about why people subscribe on the male side and the female side, then we can allow people to make their choice. Like, I really come to the point where, do you, but don't push it on me. There's one part where people are doing what they do, but it's like, you gotta accept it. You know what I mean? Trying to baptize you in polygyny. You're like, well, what is wrong? What's going on here? And then assume that if you're coming from a purely, whatever the space is, a purely selfish space or a hater space, it's whatever people's inclination is. Right? And then they're going to have to lay in whatever bed they made. They say every tub is going to have to sit on its own bottom. People are going to have to live the life that they have chosen. And no amount of trying to convince the other person of the life you chose is going to take away the fact that you got to live your own life. And I know sometimes people don't want to be looked on a certain way or judged. But here's the kicker. Here's the rub. People are going to judge you anyway. You know what I'm saying? That's what we the people do. People judge. People talk. That's what they do. They talk. People talk. People are going to talk. Is there a high propensity based on my research for exploitation? Yes, I would say. Is there a high propensity for, because it's already something that it's like not all the way stable, although people sell it, they flip it around and say, yeah, because it makes you more stable. I'll leave it with this. And I started with it, so I'm going to leave with it. Having one masculine energy with a lot of feminine energy is not balance. although we may think it is, because oftentimes the women are left to rear the children. The man is not present if he's looking to provide. So the women are now taking on the responsibilities. So really, to a certain degree, you have a lot of single mothers. Let's say, for instance, that Solomon didn't know he just had 3 little old children. Where the rest of them at, I don't know. But this is not about Solomon no more, right? So let's say Solomon did have some children that was kind of comparable to the amount of women he had. Who would be there? Where would the father figure be if he had, like the man in Ethiopia, 70-something children, or the man in another place, 100 and something? How does the father play the role of a father and touch the lives of these souls on an individual basis if he can't be present? Because the ratio, you can't even have this 1-to-4 ratio like of teaching in a classroom. You don't even get the full attention from the student, from the teacher in the classroom if you don't understand something when the classroom is overpacked, 20, 30 children in the classroom. They'd be like, there's way too many children in this classroom and they're not getting their needs met. So if the father is the instructor, if he's supposed to guide and provide and be there in a way that it's real and it's able to connect, how can you, as a finite resource, feel that you can meet the needs of all these people, plus not just the children that you create, plus the women that you are in relationship? How, Sway? How? And that's why, in my estimation, it creates this level of imbalance that other people are going to have to take up the slack for. Other people, namely women and mostly children, are going to have to shoulder the imbalance of the male not being there. So Sarai says, last week you made a great part regarding the complex relationships we have. Not everything is polygyny. Sarai versus the stranger, i.e. Hagar, that was not poly, that was a surrogate situation. And that's correct. That was correct. That was a surrogate situation. And everything is not polygyny. But in the same, it's like J-Y-N-Y is women. So multiple women. You know what I mean? Even polyamory in other places, this is just multiple loves. It's a complex situation. You know what I mean? And in some polyandry, in some minute spaces, they're doing it because there's a lack of land, like in the Himalayas of India or wherever, and they don't have any land to plant, and so expanding the family is not a good idea for them, and so the woman works around. There was another place in China they did it too, where all of the roles were reversed. Y'all gonna make me go into my Rolodex here. They were all, what's the name in China? Where the women are the ones that were doing all of the manual labor, and the dude is like on his gondola floating down the river doing nothing all day. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. But yeah, it's really where we oftentimes go against. And I know we'll probably come back another time because people say the nature of man. But we go against, when we're talking about these two very complex beings coming together, it causes a friction depending on those people, because every person that you add makes it even more complex. So those are my thoughts on the nature of polygyny. Hopefully I didn't step on too many toes or people feel too much a kind of way, because if I wasn't stating facts, go ahead and drop the facts in the box below. Be like, Amuna, that's not fact. And then wait, I need a time marker and your corrective fact. You know what I'm saying? If you say this is not a fact, then I need a time marker and then give me the fact about why I was errant in that area, so I can bethink myself and possibly, correct my ways if I'm wrong. Remember, I've thought about this long and hard, y'all. So, yeah, I'll leave that at that. I'll come back again and talk about my experience. I know y'all probably saying, well, why, Muna? Why you know so much? Or why you? I'll talk a little bit about my experience. I wrote a bit about it through my character in the book, and so I'll share a bit about that at another time, of why I just thought this was just I needed to understand what was this all about, because it was like this unreal, like, from everywhere. I'm like, oh, this is just weird. China's eastern Ahui province, possibly, sis. I gotta go double check. I know it was somewhere It was crazy. That's all I know. It was crazy. It was different, let me just say. You love these talks, Vanessa, long time no see. I love it too. I try to get in where I fit in. I want to thank everybody for coming through. We'll talk again. Like, subscribe, share, all that lovely nice stuff. You don't know. Time marker. Let me know if I'm wrong, if I'm off. Show me the way. Point the light. Alright? One.